So, welcome everyone to the Armadale Meditation Group. I know a few people in the audience, of course from Western Australia, but there is always also a few people joining from Adelaide I saw and from overseas as well. So welcome to everybody, whatever time zone you are in now, to join us for this chanting first and then a bit of a talk and the meditation. And please feel free to ask some questions. I really like to engage with people in those kind of ways where they do ask questions, because especially when the format is online, it's sometimes a bit hard to kind of know if what you're saying actually lands. And it's quite nice actually as well to have a bit of interaction. So I don't know how you operate afterwards, but feel free if you can unmute yourself and ask the question directly, because then we can have a bit of a dialogue. If there is some questions that you don't want to, kind of ask publicly, so to speak, you can also put them in the chat, and then they can be read out and I can try to answer them that way. But then I feel it's a bit more impersonal, because I can't really check back with you if I don't understand the question directly. One of the nice things that Ajahn Brahm often says about his teacher Ajahn Chah is that Ajahn Chah wouldn't answer a question, he would answer the person. So it means the same question asked by different people leads to a different answer. So it's nice to have that connection there. Anyway, let's start with the Metta Sutta. Okay. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be happy. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good. So, that was the Metta Sutta. Thank you. So that was the Metta Sutta. And I was just discussing with Venerable Vosaga, who is helping facilitate the IT from this side, what we are actually chanting, because there is a few versions of the Metta Sutta. And I just saw also the version you have on there and the version that I have on the sheet here. It's another cheat sheet. Talks about fixed views at the end of the Metta Sutta. And that is actually not quite an accurate translation. It is really false views. So it's the word ditthi. And ditthi, usually if it stands by itself, if it doesn't say samma ditthi, which is right view, just ditthi itself usually means wrong views. So, you know, we shouldn't be fixed on our views, yes, of course, but there is some views that are important, like right view, and it's important to actually hold on to those views, especially in the beginning of the practice. Hold on to your precepts, not in a too forceful way, but in a way that you really value those things, because they are important. And then once they become internalized, once they become kind of the fabric of your character or of your being, which is, you know, fluid and changes over time, but if they're internalized, then this kind of grip or fixation is not necessary anymore, because they arise quite naturally. Right, so that's just a bit of comment on the Metta Sutta there. But when I was asked to do this Armadale group with you, I was reflecting what I should be talking about. Sometimes nice to have a bit of an idea before you come here and sit in this seat. And as Chris was just saying, I arrived in Western Australia together with Ajahn Brahm recently. I'm here for a visit for about 3 weeks before I go back to Melbourne, to Newbury Buddhist Monastery. And we had the privilege and the honor to have Ajahn Brahm come to Melbourne. Finally, you know, with all these COVID restrictions and especially with the hard border in Western Australia, it was impossible for Ajahn Brahm to come for 3 years. So they were very, very thrilled. Well, I mean, I can't say it was impossible. He could have come to Newbury, but he would have been stuck there. So in those terms, that's why he had to cancel the trips many, many times, because, you know, the BSWA wouldn't be very happy with us over in Melbourne, or the people in Melbourne, if we would snatch away Ajahn Brahm and then keep him over there. Of course, people over there would be very, very happy, and he would still be able to do things online, but, you know, it's never the same as having someone with you in person. And this time, because we still had some COVID restrictions and some COVID, you know, out in the community, Ajahn Brahm actually stayed at the monastery for most of his visit, which is quite unusual. He would come and visit the monastery, but he would usually have, you know, lots of public talks and lots of public engagements and be in the city center. So you don't really have the opportunity to catch up with him. And even that might surprise you. I mean, I've been in Australia for 12 years now, and most of that time living with Ajahn Brahm in the monastery here. But it is quite different to be with him in another place where he usually doesn't stay and where he is, you know, engaging with the community and doing a bit more teaching. I mean, he does a lot of teaching here as well, but it's so kind of organized that you don't really see him perform in the same way. Well, perform is maybe the wrong word, but what really struck me and what really inspired me was to see Ajahn Brahm in action and to see how many things he was doing in one day and how he was just moving from one thing to another thing and really connecting to the people. And that brought up a topic for me and a theme that I thought I would like to focus on tonight, and that is the topic of the malleable mind. And that is what Ajahn Brahm really exemplified for me during that time. So very often we have this kind of fixation in our views, and we become kind of hard and tough or stubborn or stuck in our own ways. And it's so difficult to, interact with other people, to flow in your day-to-day life, flow with whatever activities are happening around you. And that is something that he's really shown us so nicely. And I was very, very, very grateful for that. So we could compare that with being like water, if you want to have a little simile there. So the water is actually something which is very, very soft. So it doesn't have this hardness or this harshness. So it is very adaptable. And one of the things with water is whatever vessel you give the water, it is able to fill that vessel in a very nice way, in a very effortless way as well, because it adapts. But also when I was reflecting on this, that sometimes we say you go with the flow, and that might kind of indicate that, there isn't any values or anything that you are kind of still adhering to, or that you find important, that you can just be, washed around. But water is actually not weak. If we unfortunately see the effects on the water now in New South Wales and also in Brisbane, in Australia, where it suddenly rains a lot, that this water can actually have a lot of force, like the flowing water, or even the seeping water, or even the water that makes its way through the riverbanks, through the valleys, and actually shapes the stone. But again, it's not a harsh and hard way of doing these things. So Ajahn Brahm has this beautiful kindness. He has this skillfulness, and he is very wise about how he interacts with people, how he relates to people, and how he also relates to himself, and how he relates to his body, how he relates to his mind. And that is something that we train through meditation. A few little anecdotes that kind of came up for me when I was reflecting on this, and how, I, even as a layperson, had some of those experiences that actually fit into what I wanted to share tonight. So I was doing martial arts for a while, when I was quite, I think I started in first or, second, third grade. I can't remember exactly when it was, but fairly early on. And I wasn't really interested in the kind of fighting of the martial art. But again, I was interested in the mind, how the mind works, and what we can do with the mind, and how we can flow even in those martial arts. There is different types of martial arts, and some of them are actually very, very beautiful and very, very skillful. So it's not about attacking another person. It's not about opposing another person. It's about realizing what the situation is and how you can respond in the best way. So one of the responses, of course, is that you don't get in trouble in the first place, that you don't go to places where it's not useful to be in, where it could be dangerous. But then also when things happen, you see where the energies are and how you can play with those energies, how you can use the energy, for example, also of your opponent, not to, destroy that person or to bring your own energy into it too strongly, especially not this anger and opposition energy. You use the energy of the other person to basically pull or push them in a direction, or to use the energy they are exerting. So you're getting out of the way, or it's a little bit like a dance. So when you're very, very skillful with these kind of things, and you don't really want to hurt the other being. But you want to make sure that you don't get hurt and the other person doesn't get hurt beyond what is necessary in that situation. And then also I remembered I did quite a bit of acting and drama. That's one of the things that I really enjoyed as a layperson. And there is that one beautiful exercise that we would do, and it is a dance exercise. And very often in the classical dances, it's kind of like one person who is leading and the other person who is, I don't know how you call it, following them. But in that exercise, it was different. It wasn't quite clear actually sometimes who is leading and who is following. And that was the quite beautiful thing about this. So it's an exercise that you do in pairs usually, or even in bigger groups, but in pairs it's a bit easier. And I've also done that with some of the primary school kids. I was a primary school teacher in the past and did also do a bit of acting with those primary school kids. And it's basically you are imagining that you are standing in front of a mirror and you are mirroring what the other person is doing. But the beautiful thing about this is that when you really tune into what is happening, tune into the movements of each other, and then there comes the time where you don't have one person leading it and the other person following the same movements, but you actually have an interaction which happens between those two people. So you take the lead and you give the lead, and it becomes this fluid expression of a dance, so to speak. So sometimes you don't really know, is it me who are moving in this direction and the other person is moving with me, or am I following the other person's movement? And I found that something quite beautiful. And again, when I was reflecting on this, one thing that came up for me, I don't know if that is something that some of you are familiar with, but when I was an exchange student in New Zealand, I was at Wairarapa College, which is not too far away from Wellington, at a high school there, and we could choose 5 subjects. And one of the subjects I chose was drama. And we had a group there, and it was a theatre sports group. So theatre sports is a way where you usually compete against other groups, and it's improvisation theatre. So you would usually have 4 or 5 people in one team, and there is different games and different rules to those games. But the main idea is that you have the audience give you some clues, give you some words, give you some hints, and then you have, depending on what the game is and what the rules are, a couple of minutes to improvise and to basically, you know, make up a scene and make it interesting and make it funny. And that also reminded me of how life is. Life is actually an improvisation as well. And they have tips or they have rules how to play theatre sports successfully. So I actually went online and had a look and found a page somewhere. There is a group here in Australia, and they were going through some of those rules. And those 3 rules really spoke to me and spoke to this topic that I wanted to discuss tonight. So this fluidity, this malleable mind, this mind that doesn't oppose. So rule number 1 that I wanted to discuss with you is say yes and. And they described it as if you say no or block offers. So that means you are improvising, and one of the people who improvises will come up with an idea, will express something, will express an emotion, or will bring a prop, or just an imaginary prop sometimes as well, or bring up a place or bring up a time. And the important part there, when you're improvising together and we're trying to create something, trying to relate to each other, trying to create a scene, then you want to make sure that you don't block these offers that a person brings up. And that is what I've seen with Ajahn Brahm as well. There are so many offers during that time where he was in Melbourne. And you know, if you're very, very famous, there is sometimes too many offers. And of course you can't accept all of them, but you still don't oppose them or you don't block them, but you find a way to accept the offer first and then act on it in a skillful way. So literally to say yes and then to say and. Or, I mean, you know, if it's asking about a talk, for example, for Ajahn Brahm, or meeting a person he really can't meet, the acceptance wouldn't mean a yes, but it would be just appreciating that people are reaching out, for example, and then just saying, look, I have something else on, but not have this blocking. So say yes and. So how can we use that in meditation to maybe reflect for yourself? How can we use that in life to have this radical acceptance? Because even if something needs to be changed, there needs to be an acceptance of feeling and seeing what actually is going on before we can skillfully, wisely act and interact. Next rule that I found is, if you get stuck, change. So in improvisational theater, you will sometimes get stuck, and you often get stuck if people have fixed views, if people have fixed opinions how the thing should run, and you're not fluid enough. What do you do then? So you change in that theater. In the theater sports, you change the time, you change the location, you change the emotion, and you make sure that you can keep the story moving forward. Right, so maybe that you might think doesn't quite fit into your day-to-day life so much, but I have realized that when our views are very fixed, when we are only able to see things from our own perspective or from our own interpretation, we get so stuck that we are not open to change, that we are not open to interacting, that we're not open to actually find a solution that works for all the parties, because we are so strongly holding on to what we would like to do, what kind of makes sense to us, and not open to see the situation from another person's point of view, or to, you know, take us out of it somehow. Change the time, change the location, change the emotion. Try to even do that in your day-to-day life. And that very often just means to drop what we think, what we feel, the opposition that comes up. It doesn't mean that if something is wrong and that we drop that and say, you know, I'm going to just say everything is okay, we condone whatever comes up. No, we can still have our values and, you know, hold on to our values and value our values. That's why they're called values. But we can, at the same time, have an openness, have a certain wiggle room, so that we can, instead of getting stuck, that we can actually dance, as I described it before. And then rule number 3 that I found, let your character be changed. So of course, when we talk about character, we very often think that character is something which is more or less set in stone, which is more or less what just, you know, has been conditioned or has even, you know, come with our genes or God knows what. But that is actually not true. Of course, there is conditioning, and conditioning can be very strong, and it can influence what we call character, but character can be changed. And what they said on that homepage for that rule, let your character be changed, real drama is seeing a character be changed during the scene. Make your character go through change and end the scene differently, emotionally, physically, mentally, to how they started the scene. And one of the things that I've realized with someone like Ajahn Brahm, you might say you know your teacher's character, but the more advanced people are on this spiritual path, the more unpredictable they are, the more fluid they even are in their character. So you never know what they're going to do. You never know, also because they are so playful, they're so kind of happy and joyful, and they see the world in quite a different way than a lot of us see the world. And that's why they are able to flip what we call character and change what we call character so quickly and so nicely. Okay, so this is a few kind of introductory words for you here. Oh yes, sorry, there is one more. Is it four? One, two, three. Oh yes, I actually found four. Yes, okay, so let's do number 4 before we do the meditation together. And that is also something that I've seen in Ajahn Brahm, and something that is recommended for the theatre sports. So the title there is "Do It, Don't Talk About It." So you will know sometimes we have committee meetings, sometimes we have, I don't know, we have peace talks, we have all sorts of meetings, of getting together and of trying to, you know, figure out some ideas and to get our point across and God knows what. And it doesn't really lead anywhere. It doesn't really have the substance that it should. It doesn't actually translate into action. So for the theatre sports, it was said here, every line of dialogue is an offer that drives you to action. So there is offers and there is actions that have to be taken. Make an offer that says where to go next or what to do, and then start doing it. So instead of just having all these discussions about all these beautiful strategies and, you know, God knows what, let's find something which is actionable, which is maybe a small step, but a step that we can take, that we're confident enough to take, and then follow up with actions. So don't keep talking, because we can also get stuck in talking, which I'm doing here. I'm almost going over time, I see. So we should be taking action to solve the problem. And in meditation, of course, this talking doesn't happen, we don't have a committee meeting, or I don't know what's happening in your meditation, but you know, there is sometimes this inner dialogue, this inner thing going on of you know, how you should be figuring out things. And then with all that talk and all these scenarios, very often there is, you know, fear that might come up, or anxiety that might come up, or guilt, or anger, or all these unhelpful, unwholesome mind states. Instead of just being there with what is and doing the thing that we're doing, meditating. So, and meditation maybe in that respect is not really a doing, it's much more a being. And finding, again, a peaceful, fluid way to be in relationship with whatever you encounter. Okay, I think let's leave it at that for the introduction here, for the talking. And let's do the doing, or let's do the undoing, which meditation is together. So if you haven't already, please find a comfortable position that works for you in meditation. That can be on a chair, that can be on a mat on the floor, that can even be lying down if that is something which your body needs at this time. There is certain bodies that have health issues and that just can't comfortably be in a position for a longer period of time. But if we do give that kindness and care and attention to our bodies in the beginning, then they will be thankful, and then they will actually dance with us into meditation, instead of us dragging them here and there, so now we go meditate, now we do it. So let's see if we can try and use those few suggestions that I have offered. All right. Maybe take a few deep breaths in the beginning here now. And if you haven't done already, close your eyes. Or if that's something you are not familiar with or comfortable with, just see if you can relax your eyes. And maybe half close your lids, or just kind of gaze out without trying to see anything. And let's see if we can take one of those similes that I was using in the beginning of the water or of the dance, of the interaction where you're not sure sometimes if you're leading the way or if your body and mind is leading the way. So to trust enough, to be open enough, to be accepting enough, to engage in this dance. Or to be like the water which fills whatever vessel it finds. And that will be different every time you meditate. That will be different in your body. That will be different in your mental world, in your emotions, in the thoughts you might encounter. Or also the container of your breathing. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. A good place to start is always the good old body of ours. Let's see if you can get in touch. Let's see if you can feel what's going on. And I usually like to start with a bit of a body scan. But let's use the water, which I find is a very good way to relate. So instead of thinking about the body, being the body, getting in touch with the body. And one way, if you want to follow me here, is to imagine your awareness is like water. And to let that water flow into your feet, first of all. And because this water has this beautiful quality of adapting, it will just flow into whatever shape or whatever form your feet are in right now. See if you can just drop into the sensations of your feet. And as it were, instead of having your awareness, or very often we think in our head, see if you can be aware in the location of your feet. If your feet were a person, how would they feel the world? How would they see the world from their perspective? And then, if you are able to do this skillfully, you might realize that the shape you poured your awareness into is actually not that solid itself. If you engage in that dance I was talking about, then you might recognize that even your feet and the sensations there are kind of fluid. So that your awareness and your feet can mix, can interact like two liquids meeting, flowing into each other. And then allow the same process to happen for the lower parts of your legs. Your heels, your ankles, your calves, your shins. See if you can be there. See the world as it is from their perspective. Where the head is up there, not the legs are down there. Flowing, adjusting to the shape. And then hopefully also starting to interact starting to flow into each other. Or you might not quite know where what you describe as your lower legs or know as your lower legs finishes and starts. Where what you call yourself and your awareness finishes or starts. Mixing or if you like, this simile of dancing together. And then moving to your knees. Front part of the knees, which is a bit more solid and maybe clear. And the back part, behind your knees, which is soft and tender. Can you be your knees? Can you feel as your knees? Can you flow into your knees? Dance with your knees. And this adapting and adjusting also includes moving if that is something which is required in any of those body parts. So that they can relax, that they can flow, that they can become malleable, flexible. And then moving up to the upper parts of your legs. To the two biggest bones in your body. And to quite a bit of flesh and muscles. Tuning into them. Listening to their tune. Singing and humming along. Feeling their rhythm. Resonating and dancing along. This beautiful, relaxing dance, effortless, smooth. Not knowing who is leading, not knowing who is following. Just the dance. And then your hips, your belly, the area that is in Asia often described as the center, the hara, solar plexus, the navel of the world. See if you can feel the world from that perspective. Accepting whatever is there. Skillfully using the energy. Not abusing it. Melting into that area. Merging with it. And that includes the bones, the skin, the flesh, all the organs. Smoothly gliding over the meditation dance floor with them. And as you do, if you are really there, forgetting everything else. And moving up to the rib cage, to the lungs, to the heart, to the shoulders, feeling that energy, or filling that place, with your awareness, tapping into its energy, its rhythm, its groove. Upright and open, fully engaged. But also just pulled along, carried. And then from your shoulders, make your way into your arms. First, the upper parts of your arms. Again, being your arms. How does the world feel like as this area of the body? Melting into your arms melting into you. The same with your elbows. With your lower arms, back and front, inside, outside, skin, hair, bones, sinews, muscles. Becoming one. And then also with your ankles, your hands, and if your hands have been still like mine, you can't even say where one hand starts, where the other hand starts. It's just this sensation, this energy, where the hands are. And then try to really jump in, to engage in the dance of energy, of warmth, of tingling. And you lose yourself in it. And then let's move to our neck. The spine and the fleshy parts of the neck. Which flows into our skull. And from the inside out, in all the organs, in the brain, in the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears, the tongue, the jaw. They're all singing their song. But like when you hear the frogs or the crickets, the songs all combine together and become one song, one melody. One dance. And if you have some more time, another time when you meditate in this way, see if you can flow into, listen, hum, sing along with, or dance with your thoughts, your emotions, whatever is coming up in the mental world. Not pushing or pulling around these things. Not being pushed and pulled around by them either. But dancing with them in this graceful, beautiful way. And then, of course, the same applies to the breath, to the song of breathing, to the rhythm of breathing, which merges with the song and the rhythm of the mind. Dancing into stillness, into peace, into brightness. And as the music, so to speak, of this guided meditation will soon stop, reflect how that was for you. Don't think that, like with dancing, you don't have a feeling for rhythm, or you don't have a feeling for the aesthetics of dance. This dance is different. If you let go, you will be just pulled along. And you pull your body, your mental world, and your breath along with you. So how relaxed are you compared to half an hour ago? How in tune are you? How calm, how clear. How kind, how soft. How malleable. I'll be ringing the gong 3 times to invite you to dance back into the Armadale Meditation Group. Okay, I hope that was enjoyable, or at least interesting, that you could learn something, that you could really, let go into the movement, into the dance. And let's see if we can have a bit of a discussion, or if you want to share some thoughts or some experiences, or if you have questions, I think it might be nice to open up and have a bit of that kind of dance in the Q&A together. If that isn't the case, I'm happy to carry on talking a little bit more, but yeah, let's see what there is first. Yes, it was a bit of a different meditation even for myself. Usually the guided meditation, I guided a little bit and then I shut up. Well, this time I just kind of let myself engage in whatever came up, and it was a guided meditation with quite a lot of guidance. So I don't know, some of you might not be used to that, but please always feel free, if that is not working for you, to just sit quietly, or to even, turn me down or whatever and just meditate. I don't mind, you can do that. When I'm giving a talk somewhere or something, you can't switch me off, but here you have the opportunity to tune me down or switch me off, whatever is needed at that time. If the tune I'm singing is not something that is suitable for you. Yes, David?
Me? No, it was beautiful. It was very calming. Your talk. I was just discussing with my supervisor.
Yes.
The dance he has to do with almost be a psychologist with the 40 trains he's got to, conduct. to build a house, and I'm
Yes.
one of them. I'm one of 40, but and even my own self saying things that I regret, you know, through and how they affect you, affect me, and my meditation. I have to, you know, apologise a bit to bring myself back up again to meditate well. So. It's very, very timely, a whole talk actually, about my own week I've had, and so yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Glad to hear, yes. And as it is with dancing, I mean, I wasn't a good dancer. I was always a bit clumsy. But the more you do it, and the more you kind of let go into the process, and you know, feel the music, feel life, feel you know, the beautiful energies within yourself, feel how the teaching flows, then you will be able to do it more and more skillfully. I mean, you know, I don't want to be calling Ajahn Brahm a dancer, but somehow this dance thing just happens now in this class. And if, you know, we talk about dance in the way I described it, I mean, he's a pro. Yes, anyone else would like to offer something or ask something or share something? Yes, Michelle.
I was, unfortunately, super tired, and I'm afraid I dropped off to sleep a couple of times.
Well, no, but that's great. You merged. Yeah, you merged with sleep. You didn't know where sleep was and where you were, and it actually merged. So that what I was describing happened. Now, if your body needs the sleep, then you go along with it. But if you oppose it too much, then you get even more sleepy. Then you get even more restless. And you just oscillate between the two of them. So I was talking about this simile of what we do in acting, where we have this mirror kind of game. So, you know, your sleep is kind of leading you in a certain direction, and you follow it for a little way, but you kind of bounce back, and then you're taking the lead again. So as long as that is happening, then it actually smooths out. Then it actually, you know, those kind of melodies are in disharmony, so to speak. And they find each other. And when they do find each other, the song is created, the energy becomes available, and then you're off. So no problem, no problem. Was it for a long time?
Pardon?
Was it a long time, or was it a bit in and out, or?
I think it was in and out.
Okay.
And there was also a bit of agitation, so I'm not too sure what was going on. But
sure.
I had a very late night last night because the plumbing in the house blew up and the water was spurting everywhere.
Oh no. But the $1 million question, how do you feel now?
Yeah, I feel ready for bed.
Okay. So better follow that as well.
I probably won't in 20 minutes, so I probably will come awake.
Right. Sometimes that happens as well, yeah.
Still early.
Yeah, right.
Still early coming out of the meditation. But it's interesting that the thing that kept me awake was water.
Right.
Even the beginning of your talk.
Right. Okay. Thanks for sharing. Yes. Aha. Okay. Do we read what is in the chat, or hang on? Okay. Okay.
Yes, if you'd like, I can read it for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Go for it. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Okay. Just 1 moment. I've just got to move my screen over a little bit. To go. Hello everyone, and we go. This is from Kyle. Lovely meditation, feeling good after that. Now, I actually can't move my screen.
Okay. Anyway, I can see it here. So it says,
the screen's not being fluid.
No problem. So it says, thanks everyone. See you next week. Hopefully with a working webcam and microphone next time. Okay, yes, sure.
And then you've got a message from Kyle underneath that. Lovely meditation.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I just read that one out. Yes, yes. What I often do when the chats come in, I don't mention the name, because sometimes they are using the chat because they want to ask a question without, you know, being known. But for this one, I'm sure it doesn't matter. Right. Let me, maybe we have a little bit of time, share a bit more. So one of the things I usually like to do is also to, you know, tie these things up with the teachings of the Buddha. And if something comes up like a theme, I usually try to dig around a little bit and see, either remember, or yeah, it's a bit of both. You know, you remember there was something and then you go and find it in the suttas. And for people who are listening to this and want to look it up, of course there is the simile that is very often used as well by the Buddha of the process of purifying gold. And there is one beautiful sutta that I found, which is in the Anguttara Nikaya number 3s, like in the book of 3s, and it's number 58. And this talks about what happens when the mind actually becomes settled and when it becomes stilled. And this talks about very deep states of meditation. It talks about jhana. And it says when these states have occurred and when we come out of those states, then our minds are purified, they're bright, they're flawless, they're rid of corruptions, they're pliable, they're workable, they're steady, and they're imperturbable. Well, that's a word. And then with that mind, we don't just interact in life, we don't just dance beautifully, but we also have the power and the clarity to take that mind and focus it on some areas where we can gain some insight. So that is from the Tikkhana Sutta, if someone wants to look it up later down the track, Anguttara Nikaya 358. And then another thing I found is a sutta that is called Foundations. It's the Nimitta Sutta. It's also in the Anguttara Nikaya. That's the numerical discourses in the books of 3, and it's number 122. And that actually shows you that you have to balance these things a little bit as well, so that this dance is an interaction of you doing a little bit and being guided a little bit, and this kind of back and forth. And it reads as follows. Monastics. A monastic committed to the higher mind should focus on 3 foundations from time to time. So someone who is developing the higher mind, the adhicitta, is basically someone who is meditating, someone who is working on stillness, on samadhi. And the foundations are the foundation of stillness, which is samadhi, number 1, the foundation of energy or exertion, but I like the word energy much more as a translation of the Pali word pagaha, and then the foundation of equanimity, of upekkha. And the Buddha says there, if a monastic or a practitioner who is dedicated to the higher mind focuses solely on the foundation of stillness, it's likely their mind will incline to laziness, or their mind will incline to sleepiness or to dullness. That's one of the things that can happen if it's not naturally something that has arisen in the body already. So that's if we focus too strongly on samadhi, too strongly on the stillness aspect. If they focus solely on the foundation of energy, it's likely their mind will incline to restlessness. And that's often that oscillation that happens that I was talking about. If you're not careful or if you're not so skilled, then these things can just interchange each other. But sometimes, as I said, there is some tiredness. You go along with the tiredness. The tiredness wears itself out. You don't have the restlessness that comes from the irritation and the pushing away, and then it evens out after a while. And then the third one is if they focus solely on the foundation of equanimity, it's likely their mind won't properly settle into stillness for the ending of defilements. And again here, the simile that the Buddha uses is this purification of gold, so that comes up soon here. So, but when a mendicant, or sorry, when a monastic dedicated to the higher mind focuses from time to time on the foundation of stillness, foundation of energy, foundation of equanimity, their mind becomes, again, pliable, workable, radiant, not brittle, and has properly entered stillness for the ending of defilements. And then he says it's like when a goldsmith or a goldsmith's apprentice prepares a forge, fires the crucible, picks up some gold with thongs and puts it in the crucible. From time to time they fan it. From time to time they sprinkle water on it, and from time to time they just watch over it. And that is those three qualities that we talked about. So they fan it, they put water on it, sprinkle it with water, and they just watch on. So you have to be skillful to know, to feel which things are required at what time. Because if you would solely fan it, the gold would likely be scorched. If you solely sprinkle it with water, the gold would likely cool down, and then it can't become malleable. If they solely watched over it, the gold would likely not be properly processed. But when the goldsmith fans it from time to time, sprinkles it from time to time, watches over it from time to time, that gold becomes pliable, workable, and radiant, not brittle, and is ready to be worked. And then the wonderful part here at the end, then the goldsmith can successfully create any kind of ornament they want, whatever, a bracelet, an earrings, necklace, or a golden garland. So we have this idea again, like the water that fills whatever shape you wish to have it fill. You can do the same thing with the pliable, pure, malleable gold. With the mind, it's the simile for the mind. It can become all these beautiful things. And it says in the sutta, I'm just kind of summarizing it here, in the same way, a monastic or anyone committed to the higher mind becomes capable of realizing anything that can be realized by insight to which they extend the mind. And that is really the deeper meaning of this all. That when we engage, when we learn to do these practices in the right way, the mind basically works together with us, and we are able to gain deep insights and understandings which allow us to really deeply be connected to what life is, what suffering is, what happiness is, to understand these things, and to also know how to respond, how to behave, how to engage, how to relate. Okay, so that's a few more little things there about the suttas as well that I usually like to bring in, so that we don't just, it's nice to kind of bring these things together. Okay, anyone else would like to share something or would like to ask something? Not really. Oh well, I might carry on talking a little bit then. Keep you engaged. One of the other things that I was mentioning or talking about recently was this idea of Mara and what Mara represents in Buddhism. In Buddhism, Mara is the personification of defilements, the personification of, the bad things, the temptations that can happen in our meditation or in our life. And there is this story about the Buddha becoming enlightened and Mara coming to try to persuade him not to, or to basically distract him from what he was inclined to do, what he was intending to do, what he basically has accumulated over so many years to have an understanding in which direction we walk, in which direction we go in this Buddhist path. And he is often depicted with his armies that come and attack. And these armies, as I like to say, they don't have weapons of mass destruction, they have the weapons of mass distraction. And that is one of the biggest problems that comes up in meditation. So we are inclined to work on our minds, to engage in something like meditation, and then the defilements come up, or then the hindrances come up, as we call them in Buddhism. Then these things like greed, like hatred, like delusion, or maybe confusion is a good word for it, comes up as well. Things come up like fear and anger, helplessness or hopelessness. So if these things happen in your meditation, it's to be expected. It's not something that goes wrong. It's basically Mara showing up. The question again there is how we relate to these things. So the other things that come up as well, to have all the 5 hindrances there, is drowsiness or is restlessness, the 2 things we've talked about already a little bit, but also worry or doubt. And we have to learn to engage with Mara in a way that he doesn't lead us astray, but that we also don't pick a fight with Mara, so that we sit our ground, that we stand our ground, that we actually progress. And how can this be done? And one of the things that I found quite useful, that comes from the tradition of contemplative prayer, I think it is, are the statements of resist no thought when it arises in your meditation, react to no thought, and retain no thought. And that does apply to meditation, to distractions as well, you know, to things that come up in your body, to things that come up in your mind. So no resisting, that we talked about before. So instead of doing that, we listen, we understand, and we care. And that's one of the things that I described as kind of tuning into, reverberating with, harmonizing with whatever comes up. And then that will lead to a settling, that will lead to a calming. So you don't react, you don't overreact, you don't engage in too much of a forceful way, you don't interfere, and that will allow these things to become more still, to slow down, and to lose that unwholesome, that restless kind of energy. And then we also don't retain these kind of things. So whatever comes up, we don't buy into it. We don't get stuck into it. And we are able to let it go. So we don't get carried away by it either. So it is, when you talk about these things, it's always a bit difficult because, you know, if you look at it from one way, you're saying, you know, don't do anything. If you look at it from another way, you say, well, you know, engage in a way that is useful. So it always really depends where you stand in this. But I think these are all tools that are very, very helpful. Okay, sure. So we are getting close to, what is it, 8:30 here? So I hope there was something in there for you that inspired you, just like the visit of Ajahn Brahm inspired myself to, you know, become more of a Dhamma dancer like Ajahn Brahm. and maybe also the meditation, maybe also the way that you could interact in this meditation, or could see the world from a different perspective in your meditation, that will help you when you're sitting by yourself in the future, without someone, talking on the other end here. Okay, that's what I have to offer tonight. Thanks a lot for all of you joining in, and for keeping the dance going.